Great then. Good afternoon, everyone who's joining us from India, and a very good morning to our Belgian panelists and any participants who are sitting in Belgium or in Europe and joining us here for the webinar. I am Ranjan Apte. I'm acting head of post at Flanders Investment and Trade Mumbai office, and we are here all together attending the webinar on perishables, the value chain in India. Rapid urbanization and incremental growth in food consumption and the consumption pattern itself has resulted in an ever-increasing need for convenience and services and technologies that help minimize the loss of fresh produce throughout its entire value chain. And also, of course, we need to ensure nowadays, talking about food consumption pattern, is that we want to eat everything all time of the year, everywhere in the world. You want to eat mangoes in Europe, and I want to eat Belgian endives in India, for example. So, of course, that is the reason why we are gathered here all together. We, Flanders Investment and Trade, together with Next Time, have organized this webinar to bring together some such Flemish services and technology providers on this platform so that we can learn from each other what are the gaps in the Indian perishable sector and where the Flemish technology or services providers, such as the three companies who are here with us, can provide or fill in these gaps. So, of course, our first speaker is Nirav Doshi. He's the principal consultant and associate director. Nirav, correct me if I'm wrong. You're the associate director with Next Time. I just heard he's been with Next Time for 10 years, which is not very long when you compare how long I have been with Flanders Investment and Trade, but nevertheless, this is not a competition. So yeah. So Nirav leads Next Time's food processing team, and he has been involved in several marquee projects, including a multifaceted manufacturing setup and a large post-merger integration. But before I hand over the virtual platform to Nirav, a little bit about Flanders Investment and Trade, because there are probably quite a few of you here who don't know us or about us. So essentially, if you have been here 5 minutes before, you would have seen those slides going past. And Flanders is the northern Dutch-speaking region of Belgium. And our organization, Flanders Investment and Trade, is the official trade and investment promotion agency of the government of Flanders. What we do is we support Flemish companies that are looking at internationalization. We have about 70 plus offices in India, 70 plus in the world, not in India. Sorry, that would be a bit too much, but 3 in India. We are based in Mumbai, and we have one office in Delhi and another one in Bangalore. So Nirav, please, the floor is yours. Oh, yes, maybe one more thing before I leave you to Nirav, sorry for that, is the flow of events for everyone. I think all the attendees would be forced to be on mute. Thank you, Christoph, for that. And what we would do is that if you have any questions, you can put it in chat. We are a team of people monitoring the chat in the back end. Or the other alternative is that you can raise your hand electronically, of course, and you'll be unmuted and allowed to speak. But I think we'll keep the Q&A right towards the end of the session. Okay, then, Nirav, all over to you.
Thank you, Ranjan, for your kind words. I hope you guys can see my screen. Perfect. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Like Ranjan said, I'm a principal consultant and associate director with Next Time. I head the operations of Greenfield and Market Research Service vertical. I've been with Next Time for nearly a decade now, involved in several strategic projects across multiple sectors. I also lead the corporate initiative at Next Time to focus on the food processing segment. So without further delay, let's get right into it. India is going through a rapid transition in terms of demographics and nutrition. Consumers in India, like any other part of the world, are looking for healthier lifestyle solutions through food and beverages. And this need has been further accelerated due to the pandemic. By 2030, Indian annual household consumption is expected to triple, making India the 5th largest consumer market in the world. This clearly sets tone for the Indian food processing industry. It is expected to grow at a CAGR of 15.5%, and experts predict that the market will nearly double to $540 billion by 2025. From foreign direct investment perspective, 100% FDI is allowed in food processing through automatic route. On account of this, FDI in excess of $10 billion from April 2000 has been received in the sector. Some of the major investments in the recent period have come from highly regarded companies, as you can see on the slide. Each of this investment ranges from 100 to $250 million. These investments are in a variety of specialized areas of processing, like yeast manufacturing, chips manufacturing, frozen potato products by Agristo. We are lucky to have representation from Agristo today for our panel discussion, and a unique investment by Italian government in setting up a mega food park in Gujarat, which is expected to bring Italian investment of over $300 million. Let us further explore India's export and import situation, as you can see on the top right corner of the slide. The imports of food products in India have constantly increased over the years. It was unimpacted by the pandemic. The exports were clearly impacted in 2021, which we expect to steadily normalize over the coming period. To briefly mention, the major export items include rice, buffalo meat, groundnuts, processed vegetables and fruits, and wheat. Whereas major import items include specialized pulses, cocoa products, and fruit and vegetable seeds. Before we get into the potential of food processing, let us briefly understand the three categories of processing, namely primary, secondary, and tertiary. So primary processing includes minimal processing like sorting, grading, or cleaning of farm produces. Secondary processing, on the other hand, includes basic alteration of farm produce before the final preparation. Example, milling paddy to rice or wheat to wheat flour. And finally, the tertiary processing category. This is where high value-added products, where more than one farm produce are combined together to deliver complex preparations like instant food items, health drinks, bakery products, and more. So to understand the potential of food processing in India, at the bottom right corner of the slide, you can see global share of processing levels across various countries. You can clearly see that developed economies like US, China, as well as Belgium, their share of secondary and tertiary level of processing is as high as 60 to 80%. In contrast to developing economies like India and Brazil, where the raw food demand is as high as 50%. Further, even the processing levels in secondary and tertiary are not very well developed. We will explore some of these finer nuances of the subsector in perishables industry in the next slide. Perishables market comprises nearly 70% of the food processing market. Similar to food processing, it is expected to grow at a nearly 15% CAGR and reach nearly $400 billion by 2025. Four major subsectors of perishables include dairy, fruits and vegetables, animal and poultry products, and marine products. Let us start with exploring India's global standing across these sectors. India ranks first in dairy, second in fruits and vegetables, with top position in some select items, as you can see on the screen, has the largest livestock population, is the leading exporter of buffalo meat in the world, ranks third in egg production, and second largest in fisheries and aquaculture. It is impossible not to be impressed by the sheer production prowess of India with respect to food, rather the perishables market. We spoke about lower processing levels in the previous slide. You can see that the level of processing across each of this sector ranges from as low as 5% to 35% in dairy. Even in dairy, though the percentage of processing is high, the shelf life of milk, which forms the largest part of dairy segment, is only 12 to 48 hours and is still majorly sold in pouches. So the actual processing from an overall perspective averages out to only 10% throughout the industry, which is much lower than in comparison to several other countries. So while India has a strong production position, there is a significant scope for processing in the sector. One of the effects as well as cause of this lower processing levels is high wastages across these segments. This is on account of several factors. Fruits and vegetables and marine products see the largest wastage of about 40%, followed by dairy, where the wastage is close to 20%. These wastage numbers open up several avenues and opportunities for businesses interested in farm to fork supply chain space. Further, some other possible opportunities from product perspective include alternative dairy products like custard, cheese, smoothies, ice creams, etc. In fruits and vegetables, there are areas of opportunity in developing products with longer shelf life, like dehydrated, spray dried products, paste, purees, etc. Also exploring innovative packaging solutions like aseptic packaging. ready to eat, ready to cook, canned and frozen products can be explored in animal, poultry and marine products. Cutting across each of this subsegment is an opportunity in exploring the processing technology, which is currently severely undertapped in India. And further, the supporting infrastructure in storage and transport specific to the food sector. In the next slide, we will cover some of the key challenges plaguing this sector and few efforts that have been taken to address the same. This slide is quite self-explanatory. On the left, you can see the challenges: small farm sizes, lack of farming mechanization, limited usage of high-yielding production techniques, growing table-grade products, etc. continue to be the biggest hurdle in increasing value and yield for the sector. Further, lack of supporting infrastructure of storage, transport, results in high wastage, which is further amplified by limited adoption of processing technology in the industry. Some efforts have been made to address these issues to some extent in the recent past, but nearly not enough. Recently, production-linked incentive scheme was launched for certain value-added products in specific cheese products, marine products, ready-to-eat, ready-to-cook products. Large players like ITC, Haldiram, Nestle, Amul, Parag Milk, etc. have been approved under this scheme. The incentive outlay for this scheme was close to $1.5 billion. The PMKSY scheme, that is the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sampad Yojana, which provides incentive across several areas in food processing, including cold chain setups, new processing setups, encourages setup of mega food parks with state-of-art technology, etc., provides incentive across all these areas. Further, agri-finance and agri-insurance schemes have been launched to safeguard the interest of farmers and provide support to bolster the farm production. While these are some of the recent steps taken, India has a very long way to go. In this slide, we explore our trade situation with Belgium. India's export to Belgium has reduced over the years, which gained back some traction in the last year, whereas import, on the other hand, has constantly increased over the years till it was impacted by the pandemic. As you can see, major items of export have been rice, cucumber, and processed fruits and vegetables. And major items of imports include alcoholic beverages and cocoa products. There is export opportunity in processed seafoods to Belgium, and of course the interest for fruits and vegetables continues as well. And for Belgian players, which touched upon several areas throughout this presentation that can be explored for venturing into India and tapping its underlying potential. I hope with this I was able to provide some insight and lay some groundwork for the upcoming panel discussion that we also eagerly wait for. Before I hand back the spotlight, please allow me to take just a couple of minutes of your time to share some information on Next Time. NextDime is a global award-winning employee-owned multidisciplinary business advisory organization. We support FDI projects into India since the late 90s. We understand this space well and have helped companies from over 50 countries establish their presence in India. With nearly 6 decades of experience and over 1,200 associates, we pride ourselves to be your implementation partners with our value-based, flexible and technology-enabled approach. Our services are broadly divided into two categories, as you can see on the slide. On the right side, you see professional services, which focuses on new entity setup, payroll processing, associated compliances, end-to-end taxation support, assurance and audit services, along with transaction support in form of valuation, due diligence, and more. On the left, you can see our newer age services, that is the business service category. Starting with business process management, here we take over the management of certain function or part of a function of a company like finance and accounting, contract management, etc. Further, we have transformation services focusing on finance, supply chain, and analytics. In strategic initiatives management, we support companies in end-to-end mergers, acquisitions, greenfield, brownfield setups, as well as project management of such large initiatives. And finally, technology advisory services covering solutions on cybersecurity, cloud migration, and more. We consider ourselves to be one-stop solution service provider for any company looking to set up in India. We have offices across all major metros in India and international offices in Dubai, Poland, and US. We also have international desks in Japan and Toronto. Further, during the past years, we have received several prestigious awards across different service areas, as you can see on this slide. Across the globe, we think next at NextDime and invite you to do the same. If you have any questions, we welcome you to share them at thinknext@nextdime.com and our team would be happy to get back to you. This marks the end of my long monologue. Please stay safe and thank you for your patience. Back to you, Ranjan.
Thank you, Nirav. And I think there's one change that I would like to see very soon in that slide, of course, the last one, where you show your global offices. You know, we want one office of yours in Flanders as well. So keep that in mind. And
Very soon, Ranjan.
we
Very
will,
soon.
yes, we will see you soon in Flanders. Okay, thank you very much for this insight into the Indian perishables industry and also the pointing out and highlighting the key challenges and also the opportunities. And it was quite an interesting overview about the bilateral trade in the sector. That was quite a deep dive, I think. Um, but of course, which also sets the context for our panel discussion. And it is led by Mr. K.S. Narayanan, who's a food and beverages expert. Um, Everyone calls him KS. I believe I can take the liberty to do so as well.
Yes, please.
So he, thank you. Um, so KS has been a part of the food and beverages industry for more than 15 years. He's well versed with diverse aspects of food processing, which includes operations, marketing, sales, and business development, as well as B2B and B2C businesses. What I would do is, yes, let me know if this is, if you're comfortable with it. I would like to very briefly, in just one or two lines, introduce the panelists as well.
Sure.
Of course, everyone can see the images on the screen also. So first we have Mr. Ghee, who's the Strategic Business Development Director with Farm NV. Ghee has experience and insight into various markets, cultures, food products, and way of doing business in not only Europe, North America, but also in Asia. The company has been active in India since 2006, and Ghee has led their strategic business development decisions for, besides India, all other developing markets as well. Then we have Stephanie Dumortier, who's the business head for Agristo India. She has been working with Agristo since 2015, mainly with the commercial project department. She now heads the business for Agristo India, which is a JV between Wave Group and Agristo. And she's responsible for setting up the plant in Bijnor, in Uttar Pradesh. Then we have Mr. Steve Alatz, who's director at foodcareplus. Steve has a long-standing relationship with India and has been working with Indian fresh produce companies establishing perishable supply chain between India and Europe. He's responsible for developing and identifying newer markets for the company. Last but not the least, we have Pankaj Khandelwal, who brings all these service providers kind of ties in together, being the chairman and managing director of I&I Farms, which is a vertically integrated branded fruit company which serves retailers in 35 plus countries worldwide. Yes, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for a generous introduction and a warm welcome to my fellow panelists as well as from people across the world who have tuned in. It's really a pleasure to host this session and sort of learn from each other's learnings and experiences. And I'm really fortunate to have this panel because if you look at it, we've got members from across different aspects of this value chain. We have someone from the whole FAM group talking about the agricultural equipment, all of those sort of processing machines, etc., right up to a frozen potato business, and then further down the value chain, and all rounded up with again from I&I Farm looking at the situation from a farm to fork sort of a situation coming out of India and presenting the products across to the whole world. So it's really going to be I'm sure an excellent discussion, learnings for each one of us to take back and sort of reflect upon and build upon it. So that really is, I'm really fortunate to have such a erudite panel around with me, point one. Before I get into the complete discussion, I thought I'll just take a minute or so. Nirav did give us a very good background in terms of the whole perishable situation in the country and in terms of the whole from the food and vegetables, fruit and vegetables, food and beverage sort of a scenario. I would like to just touch upon one particular thing in terms of if I look at it from the entire what is happening in the mega trends, understanding really the mega trends, I think point number one, when I look at the Indian market, the additional food demand is really likely to, we've got a booming middle class, and it is expected there's going to be a fourfold rise as far as the demand for food is concerned. Number one, very clearly we are seeing rapid urbanization and the growing GDP. Thus, we see a period of consistent growth over the next decade or so. So it's clearly a large opportunity, a market presenting itself, growing to go in double digits across the next decade. The other important aspect, I think, point to note over here is that there is a big shift in consumption towards fruit and vegetable pulses, the more value-added product. Because when I look back at it 20, 30 years in India, rice, wheat was at that time very basic level of GDP. That's where the country needed to invest in. I think that has happened. We are now reaching the next level of moving more into value-added products. So it clearly follows the S curve. So plus the growth in protein consumption, which is coming from livestock, from seafood, and so on and so forth. So clearly there's a big shift in consumption towards fruit and vegetables, pulses, proteins, all of that, which is the thing. The third important aspect, which I would like to just touch upon, and which is of, again, great relevance to the group today, is that almost as Nirav did mention, 30 to 40% there is food waste, particularly in fruits and vegetables and also in the area of seafood, etc., where I think each can play a big part in terms of how do we bring that out. The fourth aspect is that the average yield that we get in the country is almost half of the international averages on a very basic level, if I see. So, and last but not the least, as all of us know, India is leapfrogged as far as the mobiles are concerned in terms of technology, in telecommunication, etc. So in terms of directly reaching the farmer, communicating with them, building capability, all of that sort of helps. So overall, I can say that we are in a situation, demand is going to go explosively. We are seeing a big shift in consumption towards processed fruit and vegetables. There is large wastage, and on top of that, you have a situation where the yield is very less. So this is a perfect recipe to sort of, I think, cook up a really high growth story as we go along. So looking at this whole, with this sort of a background, I would possibly pose the first question to Ghee Barton. In terms of, I think, let's start with the whole industrial processing machinery, etc. Maybe a few words about FAM, what they do, how they do, etc. But more importantly, you've been in the country now for almost 15 years. What sort of similarities you see when you entered the Indian market and how to what it was in Belgium, maybe 30 years back, 50 years back, etc. Because there's something that we can all learn together on this. Over to you, Ghee.
Thank you. Good morning to Belgium. Good afternoon to India. Well, FAM is designs and manufactures industrial food cutting machines for cutting fruits, vegetable, cheese, potatoes, meat and poultry into dices, slices, shreds. In fact, it's all about size reduction. So we cut potatoes in French fries or in potato chips, or fruits in dices for canned products or for frozen food products which can be exported. So it's a huge range of different products which will be cut into the final product or into a semi-finest product which will be processed further in a final product. The introduction is very clear. I mean, we started in 2006 in India, and as you know, India is a huge and diverse country with regional and cultural differences, and also different standards of level of economic development. Yeah. So for FAM, we try to find our way and see where we could mean something for the food industry. We have partnered already in 2006 with a company in Bangalore, Menon Technical Services. And the first thing we did, and this was already after 6 months, we have installed a test center in Bangalore, so at least all our customers could come with their products, with their specific properties of the products of India, to test it, so we could cut together with the customer the product in the most perfect way. So that was a very important move, so that we could support locally with testing, and of course afterwards giving the service. And if we talk about food waste, let's say, or reducing food waste, there's of course a long way to go. What we could do with our cutting machines is what was just mentioned, is create value-added products. Yeah. So a lot of our customers, for instance, in Belgium, they started 30 years ago with growing potatoes, and later all these companies became in fact food processors for French fries, for diced products, for potato chips, for snacks. And this is an evolution that I see all over the world or around the world. Also in Belgium many years ago, in the 70s, we started with canned products. Yeah. Then we moved to frozen products. Yeah. Then we moved to fresh cut vegetables and fruits. Now we are ready to eat meals, ready to cook. So it's a whole evolution in the type of products that we are eating. And of course, in India, you see still a lot of fresh products, but uncut products, canned products, because the cold chain is not there yet. Yeah. So there are a lot of households who still do not have a refrigerator. So it's very difficult, of course, to keep fresh products or frozen products. Yeah. So a lot of products, let's say, are bought on the go, or in some local grocery shops, or let's say in smaller restaurants. A very nice example is that if you look to the pizza industry, well, you have Pizza Hut, you have Domino's Pizza as the leading brands. Well, the biggest market for Domino's Pizza after the United States is India, yeah, which is quite logic, because you only need a small restaurant and you can have a lot of these restaurants in a very small area, and it's reachable. The access is very important, because it's not easy to travel and drive a car in India. So these are nice examples, and where we can come in as a company with food industrial machines is, again, what I said, the value added products. Why let's say waste food products that still can be cut? I'm talking about, I've seen, for instance, also small groceries. They sell the whole product, fruits and vegetables, but of course, at the end of the day, which has not been sold, they need to throw away. But why can't we make, let's say, from these products, cut it, and can it or freeze it, so that these products can still be used? I would call it from waste to taste. Why not using the whole product, cut it and make soups of it, for instance? Sure. I think that's very important. Also, the rest streams, and Stephanie will, I think, confirm that. When you make French fries, there are rejected French fries. We already make a kind of, well, we call it rusty. It's a kind of pancake of potatoes that you can make from the rest streams. So this will avoid, of course, waste. And also important is that in India, the better food processing equipment they use, the more they can reduce the waste. Because I always say what gets in the cutting machine should get out, yeah?
Yeah.
And should get out at the highest quality. That means cutting is damaging the cell structure in a way, but if you cut in the best way, the shelf life of your product will be longer, which is important for India because there are a lot of fresh products, yeah? Also, you will have less waste because all the product that is cut in a correct way, you can use, you can sell, yeah? And also, hygiene is important, yeah? So if you cut it in a hygienic way, then there will be less contamination or no contamination of the product, so all the product can be used. So that's, I think, where it is important to stimulate this kind of equipment also in India, not only for the customers in India who export their products, because India is famous for their frozen ready meals and frozen products is export, and they are stimulated, well, they call it export oriented units, yeah? So they don't pay really taxes when they export, but please help also the production of food for the domestic market, yeah? So that these customers, these companies can buy good, high quality food processing equipment and can produce more valuable products for the Indian domestic market. So I really hope that the taxes can be reduced for these companies, that the import duties are reduced so they get access to this food processing equipment, so we can reduce waste and produce higher quality products for India.
Sure. I think thanks a lot. Fascinating insights, Ghee. I think clearly what is coming through is that early on, you very critical. What you mentioned is you started with a local development center. I think that's that clearly seems to be one of the formulas for success, because the requirements in India in terms of the food structure, taste, all of that is quite unique and different. And hence, I think the local development center understands the local requirements and marries it with the best of technology, which companies like FAM are able to provide. And that's clearly seems to be as a good recipe for success, is what I would say. That is really point one. The other very important, I think, what you said is that you saw 30, 40 years back, a lot of farmers growing potatoes and then moving into food producers. So I think that's a very natural evolution, large farms sort of moving into forward integrating, providing value added vegetable products right down to the customer, whether it is domestic or exports. And also very interesting evolution that you mentioned was moving from fresh fruits and vegetables, moving into canned products, to frozen, to freshly cut, which is then sold in the chilled form, and also then moving into ready to cook and ready to eat sort of products. I think fabulous insights, Ghee, and thanks a lot for sharing this to the whole group as well. I think moving over to you, Stephanie, Agristo is clearly one of the world leaders in frozen potato products. So how did any insights in terms of how did Agristo come about to specialize, and how come and what made you choose India as the next destination? They commonly say in India, literally from the time you wake up from breakfast right till dinner, every meal has some form of potatoes or the other. I think you come into the right market, but how did you go about deciding on this, and more about Agristo and you? Over to you.
Okay, thank you, KS, for the introduction. It's true, potatoes and frozen potato products can be consumed from breakfast until late evening snack. And that is something that is very well known in the UK, for example. In the UK, the frozen potato demand is 20 kilograms per person per year, while in India, up till today, that is only 30 grams. So the potential is absolutely huge. Currently, there are only 3 frozen potato players active. We will be the 4th. Okay. But there is so much more potential. So even the current players are not seeing us as competition, but more as an extra strength to improve and to challenge each other and to find synergies. About Agristo, Agristo is founded in 1986 in Belgium. It was founded by 2 friends, one civil engineer and one farmer. They started in the west of Flanders. I think after 15 years, they bought a Lamp Weston factory in the Netherlands. Again, 10 years later, in 2011, they bought a frozen potato specialty plant in Ghent. This is actually the biggest specialty factory of the world. And with frozen potato specialties, I mean like mash, croquettes, hash browns, and so forth. And then in 2016, we started a greenfield project in Wilsbeke. That's again West Flanders. Currently, we're having a yearly turnover of around 600 million euros. And in 2019, we've decided to start a JV in India. To be completely honest, India was not on our first country. When looking at possibilities to start a factory out of Europe or even out of Belgium and the Netherlands, but it was quite high on the list. But we found the right partner, we believe, and that's why we jumped into the project. Currently, we're 2 years later, and yeah, we faced Corona, we faced the Indian bureaucracy, and we've also faced the optimism, the way too optimistic timelines that were shared with us by contractors, potential contractors, consultants, and so forth. So now 2 years later, we are almost ready with our factory. And now in March or April, we will start our operations, processing potatoes into dehydrated potato flakes. And these flakes can be used to produce potato instant mash, but they are also used in aloo tikki, for example, or in namkeen snacks and so forth. So there are plenty of potential customers on the Indian domestic market. Our factory will be located in Bijnor, that is Uttar Pradesh. That is a challenge. It's perfect for, it's not perfect for potato supply, but in Uttar Pradesh, there's a huge market of potato farmers. However, the potato farmers, and that's what also Nirav has mentioned, farmers are really small. They are not too willing to mechanize and so forth. So we are really investing a lot of efforts and money in training the farmers, how to improve the quality of the potatoes, in switching over from table potatoes to French fry potatoes, because we need long potatoes to make French fries. We also need white or yellow potatoes instead of sugar brown potatoes and so forth. So we have those challenges, but we also have logistical challenges in the selling side, of course. UP is quite rural, roads are not too good. And even now we are starting with an ambient product, but in 2 or 3 years from now, we want to start with frozen French fries. From the moment we feel more confident, we will start with that investment. And then the logistical and cold chain side will even be more challenging, of course. Why the Indian market? I started with that. If you look at the UK consumption or Canadian consumption, those are the highest of worldwide. There's a huge potential. Also, the rising middle class, more and more women are working. So convenience will be key. And of course, what can be more convenient than a frozen potato product that you can quickly cook? Any hurdles? Yeah, also there I mentioned the bureaucracy. Indian stretchable time, IST is also one that I wrote down. But something that I had difficulties personally is, we are building a big team, a big workforce, and it's, although in my experience and also the experience of the owners of Agristo, the flexibility and accountability of the Indian workforce, at least with our employees, is sometimes far to find. And especially in a startup, we really need flexible people who are willing to take up ownership. And I think that has to do with the Indian hierarchy. I noticed that, for example, in avoiding writing emails, really pushing back responsibility, not daring to take a decision. And that brings back a lot of micromanagement, but also back a lot of work back to my husband and me, who are leading the plant, just because it's sometimes difficult to really delegate full projects to our team. So that's a pity. Also the bureaucracy, administration to set up and to execute licenses and so forth can take really, really long. And there's always someone or something that needs an extra signature or needs you to go over personally. So those are definitely challenges. Other challenges that I wrote down is contracts. Belgium and Netherlands are also very professionalized, of course, in terms of farming. We close a contract and the farmer will really be loyal to that contract. But that's something that in Uttar Pradesh, I don't know in Gujarat if that's better. Yeah. But in UP, it's hard for farmers to really follow contracts from the moment the free market is playing differently, or if another player comes up, the contract won't mean anything anymore. So that's definitely a learning as well, of course. So I believe I've shared some of the major hurdles and also the reasoning why we are starting in India. So there are plenty of hurdles, but we are more than ever dedicated to bring this to a good end and to grow and invest much further.
Certainly, I think. Thanks, Stephanie, for the good introduction. Clearly, 30 plus years, and what you said about the UK market versus the Indian per capita consumption, I think it's certainly a large opportunity, and also your approach of starting with an ambient product and then moving to a frozen product, I think is also a very wise thing to sort of get set the potato supply chain in place, because you need to deal with hundreds of farmers who own small pieces of land to get in your right size of potatoes, your right varieties, helping them grow, giving them agronomy support, etc., etc. So I think fabulous insights, and of course what you mentioned in terms of the challenges in a backward city, etc. Yes, those certainly do exist, and I think wish you and the team all the best, and I think to see, as you said, you're the number 4 player to take on this whole market and move further ahead. Over to now, Steve. Now having, what has been your experience in terms of logistics, etc.? And you've also been in the country for quite some time. What similarities do you see versus what you was there about maybe 2, 3, 4 decades back in Belgium to what it is now? And how do you foresee the market to sort of evolve?
Well, as logistics service providers, we obviously see it also in a way that is bringing it back to food waste. The food waste is in the spotlight too for the last decade, and it deserves that attention, obviously. And that's why I liked also Ghee's and Stephanie's contribution, because it also starts with cutting food waste by not wasting it, by cutting it. But another very important aspect was, of course, said at the same time, if you cut and process food, you obviously need to be able to store and move the product to the consumer in a proper way. So actually those two elements go hand in hand. Now, maybe a little bit background first about where we stand for. foodcareplus is one of the business units of a larger family-owned logistics group called Remand. Okay. That specifically invests in making sure that we have very tailor-made and customized solutions for the specific industries that we work for. We tend to say that we are architects, logistics and transport architects. And for foodcareplus, we actually focus on maximizing returns for growers and food producers. You can imagine there's a little bit of love, there is romance too. You hear it in my voice. It's because a grower, obviously, that produces nice fruit and vegetables, but also meat and dairy products. For us, it's critical that they reach the consumer. And with that in mind, we try to build and design logistics frameworks that assist food chain stakeholders from the very beginning to indeed build a plan, a logistics plan that makes sure that nothing gets lost and that they get a nice return of the product. That's why also for foodcareplus, it's a little bit in our name. The product itself comes first. So we first put ourselves in the position of the product, and we say, okay, I'm a mango. You know, I adore Alfonso mangoes, by the way. So I'm going to speak as an Alfonso. So I'm an Alfonso mango, and I would like to reach as many people as I want that like me. How I'm going to do that? So we build first good passports about what the product needs, and then what are the most interesting markets, and how we're going to set up and design a logistics framework that makes sure that that beautiful produce ends up at the consumer. Now, for Indian players, we focus on two main pillars, and then I'll get back a little bit on I think the history here. First of all, we assist Indian growers and exporters to get faster and more independent market access to the European or the African food industry by co-creating a model, a trust model, a logistics model. So we put a lot of the experience in, we use their experience, and from the very beginning, so from the farm, we try to make sure that we have a good understanding how they can bring that message over to the consumer as close as possible, which means we like very much direct relationships between growers and consumers. Usually the last stop here is the retail, obviously, especially in Europe. Not so much in Africa yet, although that is changing. But we see ourselves as a critical role playing in creating that platform in order to connect farmers and the consumer as close as possible to each other. What we also do is help Indian importers, because of course it works both ways. There's nothing as beautiful as exchanging food. We also help Indian importers to safely source products from other areas, areas in Africa or areas in Europe, in order also to, let's say, answer the developing situation in India. I mean, much more consumption also of imported foods. You see that the middle class also growing, not only hopefully for domestically processed foods, because that's also going to help a lot on that waste, but also by diversifying their diet here. Okay. I think to conclude on that, I really think that India is a very rich food culture, extremely rich food culture. And if you look already at what they're producing qualitatively, we even didn't start. So as you've seen in the introduction, I also teach cold chain practices to many adults here in Europe, and they're always astonished if I show them statistics on who is the largest producer of potatoes in the world? Usually India and China. Banana, exactly the same. And you continue like that. But if you then look at the trade statistics, the share that India actually takes on the global market for these products where they're #1 producer for is a lot less. And I will never forget, 15 years ago, I met an Indian professor in Barcelona at a cold chain, and the man said, you cannot imagine which every mile that product travels in India, we lose every time. And well, let's all invest further in the market and ready to answer questions on the scene.
Yeah, I think thanks, Steve. I think very interesting what you said is in terms of starting from the basics and co-creating a platform. I think that is important because the requirements for a mango is very different from an onion to a potato and so on and so forth. I think that is the whole challenge in terms of bringing in your expertise, bringing in the local expertise at the farm level, and sort of creating this whole supply chain right to the consumer's doorstep, and that is important to sort of reduce the farm wastage, as we all see. I think now turning over to the other side, to you, Pankaj, I think you you've been there, seen it all from this side in terms of growing, working with the farmers, building this whole supply chain. Again, not only for the Indian market, but also to the global market. And you're already present in about some 30 plus countries. So, what has been your experience in terms of how you sort of work with the players, with the farmers? How do you sort of overcome challenges like these average land holding is small? How do you go about? Because I'm sure these all require unique Indian solutions as compared to what is standard available elsewhere. And as Stephanie mentioned, there are challenges on contract farming and etc., which is very different from what is there in Europe, US, China, or any other countries. I think I would like to hear from you as well, Pankaj.
Thank you, KS, and fascinating to hear all the panel members earlier. And obviously, I relate to Stephanie more than anyone else as far as the discussions are concerned. I mean, these are all things that we've gone in and seen for more than 15 years now. Despite all that, we have survived. So, Stephanie, I think you'll survive. Jokes apart, it's a fascinating story, and the whole construct had to be changed from the way. At least I come from a management consulting background, and coming from the world of Excels and PowerPoints, and thinking that macro would translate into micro level activities. Things are very different actually in India. Ground level operations, especially in the rural aspect of work, things are very different, and you have to change your way of thinking in the first place. And I'm coming personally from that experience. To share experience again, we started with a contract farming model where we would tell the farmers that, okay, if you get this quality, we will pay you X amount, right, per kg. Those contracts never work, right? We had to learn after years and realize that the only thing that works in India is premium for quality, right? So you actually keep the prices open because there's no other way to work on that, and you have to somewhere trust beyond the contract that right level of behavior, long-term relationship with farmers, you would actually be able to build a consistent relationship focused on quality products, focused on better value for the farmers, and then ultimately translating into a product that actually can be taken to and meet global standards, right? I mean, Nirav had shared a whole lot of data on trade statistics. Steve spoke about those things, right? And the example that I can bring into this is that about 10 years ago when we started, India had absolutely zero exports of banana. And the fact is that we are the largest producers of banana. 27% of world banana is produced in India, right? And despite having logistics advantages, despite having cost advantages in production, we still could not compete. And the problem fundamentally was quality. Today, if you look at it, it's an industry which is more than $200 million, likely to become the largest export category in about 10 years, growing at about 50 to 55% annually, right?
Wow.
It's a phenomenal transformation that I have been lucky to be part of, and it's possible, right? Working with thousands and thousands of smallhold farmers, building clusters, and none of them are fixed price models, right? With the farmers, you fundamentally work with the farmers, help them improve the package of practices, help them produce to global standards, right? It was not trivial. We had to engage with the government, provide financial support to the farmers, take a long-term point of view into it, create post-harvest infrastructure, and it does take longer, but it does happen, right? That's the message I really want to give at this point of time, and it's something that you do need to come with an idea which is very specific to India. The throughputs that are required for infrastructure to work, for example, right? The unit economics, because of the high electricity cost, right? Power cost. The numbers actually work very differently compared to what at least we have seen and understood from global standards perspective. We've already spoken about the lack of actual infrastructure of global standards, and you have to learn all that stuff. These are all things that you have to find solutions which are India specific, whether it is with respect to infrastructure, technology, farmer engagement, branding processes, systems that you put into picture. And again, Stephanie raised point with respect to ownership related, delegation related issues, which are complexity with respect to management of perishables, because the person on the ground actually needs to take decisions, right? And therefore, how do you build systems and processes which are actually an HR problem to solve to take care of these issues? But 15 years later, I can tell you we are living examples that we have survived. We have created an industry out of India which meets global standards, and it's growing at the pace that it is, what macro numbers show us that we should have that kind of place in global banana trade and other perishables. Yes, we had to focus on specific products. We decided that this is so complex that we actually cannot do 20 different fruits and vegetables, right? In 11 years of our journey, we have been able to work only on 2 major products, right? That's how long it takes to get these things organized, but the scale is phenomenal. And once we get the recipe right, KS, as you have already said a couple of times, we have the possibility to grow at a pace that's almost, and at scale that's unheard of at world standards. Thank you.
Yeah, I think thanks a lot, Pankaj. Interesting insights from level ground zero in terms of, and I like the way you put it across, saying that there is a price for quality, and I think that's very important to say that, yeah, to deliver this quality, you get a certain price and keep it open. And in fact, going back to my experience, I used to always say in India, it's not contract farming, it is contact farming. And I think it's what you said that also sort of builds on that. The other very good point which you raised was, I think, from virtually India, a zero situation to sort of banana moving from a zero export to sort of being the largest in the fruits category. So it clearly shows that dedicated effort in what is required, I think, works, and you're able, transformation is possible. And I think that is clearly is there. And the last point is also important in terms of focus on 1 or 2 or whatever the core strengths are. And there you then start seeing results, and then sort of try and put together everything together which is there. And so I think fascinating insights from each one of you. I'd like to go back to you, Ghee. Just wanted to check from industrial processing machines, etc. Have you got any learnings out of India which you could take it to the rest of the world in terms of low-cost technology, appropriate technology, or whatever, semi-automated, whichever way you look at it? Are there any learnings from there, number one? And number two, do you see any of these sort of becoming world leaders, world beaters as well, in terms of what is developed here and taken to the world? You're on mute, I think. Yeah.
I saw a remark of one of the participants to the webinar and said, India is a price-sensitive market, and yes, you try to sell high-quality food processing equipment, but is it relevant for the Indian market? And I think it's a very important question, because before we entered to the Indian market, we did some research, and yeah, we found out that there is a difference between companies exporting their food products and the companies who are producing product for the domestic market. And the level of industrialization can be different, of course. If you export your food products, yeah, you need to bring products on the market who are high quality, safe products, and most of the time they are producing at higher capacities. What we have done specifically for the Indian/Asian market, let's say, is that we have developed a new range of what I would call entry-level food cutting machines. Yeah, let's say it are lower capacity versions, because most of the customers don't need the high capacity, but they need the speed of processing, so they can cut more product in a shorter time, which give them the possibility to do other things with the same number of people. Yeah, but so that's an important one. And we tried to design machines built to the needs of the customer. Not a lot of added technology, not a lot of special things. The machine needs to do the job for what it is purchased. Yeah. So for that reason, we could supply these machines at a lower price point, and this was, let's say, a big success. And in fact, what we have seen later on is that the machines which were specifically designed for the Indian market, we could also sell in Europe and North America, because these machines are used to cut products for niche markets, for specialized food products, where there is no need, let's say, for high capacity. Yeah. So that's, I think, something very important, and very important to know when you enter the Indian market. And we have seen the same thing in the potato chips industry. Potato chips is a very important snack in India. And also there we have designed a smaller capacity machine, and we really penetrated the market with that. So I think that's an important lesson. And it has been said before, I think India has a bright future. Okay, there are a lot of challenges still, but you have very good fresh vegetables, fruits, which you can transform in value-added products, which could be sold as frozen or canned products all over the world. Yeah. And another thing, where can you be the world leader for which products? Well, I thought this morning about it, and we are talking a lot about alternative proteins. Meat replacing products, vegetarian products, vegan. Well, if we need to feed the ever-growing population, we will need to go for these alternative products. And there, I think, India has a lot of knowledge about these kind of products. Because of course we are used to eat meat, but when I'm in India and I eat these veggie products, wow, this is completely different from what we eat in Europe because of the herbs and the spices that you use. If you could export these kind of products, let's say, or set up factories to produce this, I think you could beat the world, or at least be leading with these kind of products, because you have the knowledge and the expertise of it. And I can tell you this will happen because this market will grow a lot.
I think thanks a lot. Fascinating insights, Ghee. I think what you said about you entered with a new range of entry-level machines which did not need that much capacity, whereas the speed is still required. I think fabulous insight to really crack open this market. And as you mentioned on the potato chips as well, to sort of see to it that you get the right speeds going and all, but at the same time, the volumes are not very large. So really important. And the other important thing in terms of, you said that you could sell these machines not only in other parts of Asia, Africa, but also in Europe, North America for specialized products. I think that's a clear large niche, because today a lot of the large companies do not take up those niches because of the capacity constraints, whereas now you have a solution coming out of your experiences in India and providing solutions to customers. Fabulous insight. And of course, this whole aspect on alternative proteins, vegans, I think, the jury is out. Market is rapidly growing, and we could really look at that there. One question to you, Stephanie, is that from the Agristo's table, what you've seen of India the last few years, etc., what sort of products do you think the Indian consumer further needs to be exposed to, or which he or she is not aware of, and what could be that, and what is it that Agristo could be doing there as well?
Well, yeah, in general, there will be a shift more and more from table potatoes, fresh table potatoes, to frozen potato products. So that will definitely be a shift that I expect.
Yeah.
Sorry for the background noise, by the way.
It's a welcome noise.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that Indians are, the Indian population is very keen on spices and on Indian-made products. So I think Agristo will need to specialize more and more in what's the name? In masala products. So that will be something new. But I just think that the convenience, the convenience that frozen products will bring, that will be the biggest eye opener to the Indian market. And hopefully the women will be more and more evolving to. That's my opinion. That's what I desire, to work in culture and so forth. So I believe the shift from fresh to frozen will be the biggest.
Sure. No, I think what you're saying is absolutely right. And I mean, I can also talk from my experience from McCain, is that one of our best-selling products has always been the aloo tikki. And so that was again purely a made for India product, but using world-class potatoes, using McCain growing techniques and equipment technology, which went into that. But it's a local product that really was built, and this one. So that clearly is important, and we are clearly seeing the rise in demand for frozen products consistently growing. So I think that clearly is there. And coming to you, Steve, is in terms of again any like Ghee mentioned, in terms of innovations learnt in India which you could use elsewhere. Do you see similar things coming out in the logistics space as well? Low cost models, more efficient, or last mile deliveries, to whatever, whichever way you look at it.
You're muted, Steve.
Yeah.
Okay, now it should work. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm traveling to India, I'm always surprised by the enormous offering of technology. So there is a very vibrant community on developing ideas and technology. And I really feel just a gap between the old logistics world and the new logistics world in India, because I think we can learn a lot in India when it comes to that. A lot of the technology that we apply today, blockchain technology, forcing transparency, is critical from us, because of course, I mean, we build our products based on, you know, we are European consumers. We expect transparency, we expect food safety. I've seen a lot of questions raised now that certification is very often a problem. Yes, true. If you want to do business with a European retailer, you'll have to have most likely a lot of certificates in place in order to make sure that some of these practices are, you know, ensured. So I think it's really a question for India, just to make sure that there is proper investment in cold chain infrastructure, and all the rest will go very rapidly, because there is so much already in India available out there of technology. And I think, you know, exchanging those with Europe will be very exciting. So it's very old school, I know, but it's just building more cold stores. And for us, I mean, if we look at the farmers we work with, or the exporting companies, we always say, you know, make sure that we can that beautiful produce that you've grown. Let's try to do a little bit of a game. Let's try to chill it in an hour. You know, cool it as quickly as we can, because that has a tremendous impact on the experience of the consumer, and that is a thought that we need to take into. And I think, I mean, we are based in Antwerp. I mean, Pankaj, we are the banana port of the world. I mean, we're the largest banana port of the world, and we're not importing one single banana coming from India. So you guys are excited about the, you know, the potential future in here, but I'm pretty sure our colleagues of the port of Antwerp will be too. So it's just a question of, you know, putting it in place, because in the hearts and in the hearts of the people, the potential is there, but the technology is also there in India. So maybe we just need more investment in that cold chain infrastructure in India, whether or not partly by foreign direct investments. I'm pretty sure Ranjan and the team is also dealing with that. That might help, huh?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steve. I think clearly what you're saying in terms of technology adoption, getting more transparency from farm to fork, all of that will play a big role. And I think that's where I would say India could possibly take a leap as well in terms of, yeah, we've sort of stepped back because of our cold chain, our perishables, I mean, the wastage and so on. But I think these are areas which today the modern consumer is asking for and demanding for it. And that's where I think with so much of mobile penetration, I think literally over 70-80% of the country is today with a mobile phone. Mobile phone penetration is actually more than even electricity penetration in the some parts. So with that sort of background and acceptance to technology, I think this could change, and then this could be the big leap with some amount of nudge push from across foreign players to domestic governments to policy makers, advisors, and so on and so forth. And last question to you, Pankaj, just wanted is that you see any other, you said you today you've got bananas and pomegranates is what you focus and think. Do you see any other areas of opportunities which could be more easily tapped or sort of built from here, and where India could build a pole position in this whole area of perishable exports?
So, Case, actually, the opportunity is quite significant in multiple sectors that one can look at. The only worry that I would have is when you ask easily. So it's a tough one. That apart, actually, what I would say is that the entire energy around entrepreneurship, funding that's happening in India on the agriculture space is actually going to transform this, right? We've come a long way over last 20 years, whether the road infrastructure is concerned, whether the telecom infrastructure is concerned, IT availability, right? Farmer literacy, ability of farmers to use smartphones. There's a lot of infra level work that has happened in India. We need to move to the next level where entrepreneurs, companies come in and organize this sector, right? Ultimately, whether it is logistics, whether it is new technology, whether it is modern ways of growing, someone actually has to take ownership of it, and that is what. So the inflow of money into this space, and last 2 years, you would have seen the kind of excitement that is there in the entire agriculture and processing, food processing industry is phenomenal. I think that was the most important piece that was missing, and that has happened. The momentum is there now. So next 5 years, actually opportunity is there in every single product that you can pick up. We have very significant quality advantages, variety advantages, cost advantages, whether it is for the domestic market or for the international market. There's a lot to be done, and as I said, it is not going to be easy. But I actually always felt that the funding part of it, the financing that is required to organize a sector like this was missing, and that was the last piece that has started to happen.
Got it. No, I think very true. We see a lot of buzz around this whole area, and with lot of young minds, fresh minds coming in and giving it a different thinking to the whole aspect. I think that should sort of help in transformation in a big way. And as you rightly said, I think each individual or group of individuals can possibly focus on one or two sectors and then take that up and build that to scale and take it from there, I think. So that clearly is there. So I would like to possibly, I think we'd like to close the session here in terms of this one and take it over to Ranjan and Soma. If there are any questions which have come in already, which you want either me or any of the other panelists to take, we'll be happy to do that. And then after that, I can sort of briefly sum the whole thing up. Over to you, Ranjan.
Yes, thank you. Very interesting Q&A session. Actually, I want to say two words that I know there's quite a few challenges everyone faces when entering any new market. But as a consumer, I only see two words: convenience and accessibility. Sorry for all your hard work, but it is good for us. So thank you very much. And yes, we do have a couple of questions here. If I may be allowed to read them out, if everyone has the time, because I need to ask this because we had scheduled this webinar to be for about an hour. We are already about 20 minutes over time. So please, I'm asking all the panelists, everyone included, if you still have the time, if anyone wants to go back. I imagine it's the year end in Belgium, so do let me know. I can always share the question with you, but if you have another 10 minutes to spare, then I can read out the questions here. Sure?
I
Thank
have
you.
5 minutes. I'm sorry. I need to...
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So first questions for Stephanie then.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, hold on. So we start with which question? Yes. Ambuj. I think Stephanie, you met him. So this question is specifically for you. So hello, Stephanie. We met at Sial in 2015. My company is setting up the food park in Mathura. Hope you're well. I have a general question. Okay, for the panelists, India is a country which is used to eating fresh food, and processed food really in as much demand as stated in the multinational consultancy report? So he's essentially asking, what do you feel about frozen or processed food vis-a-vis the tendency of Indian population to eat fresh produce?
Well, the numbers are showing an increase in processed foods, but yeah, during the construction phase, we've been sharing a kitchen with 8 of our colleagues actually, and in there, every time when we were cooking something, yeah, my Indian colleagues thought it was blend, so that's why I mean the spices and the Indian-made products will be really important when we produce specific product for the domestic market. But even when we had some leftovers and we were freezing it or using it the day afterwards, everybody was shocked of my colleagues. So they're not used to it yet. And they are always making fresh food. Also, a lot of wives of my male colleagues, because most colleagues are male, they stay at home to always prepare fresh food in the morning, at lunch, and in the evening. So personally, I've not seen the trend, but the numbers are showing it. And I'm also very often in Delhi in weekends, and also there, the consumers going to the QSR chains, for example, are huge. So I believe there's a trend, but it's not spread into the rural areas, I believe. And it will probably take some more time, but we have time. The market is big enough.
Yes.
Ranjan, I'll also add to that. I think with the rapid urbanization which is happening, in addition, both as Stephanie mentioned, with more and more women coming into the workforce. So I think convenience is certainly something which people are looking for. And this is a secular trend which I am also noticing, not only in the big cities, tier 2, tier 3, it is sort of spreading all across and spreading pretty rapidly. So I think clearly the numbers are there to stay, and it's going to be. Yeah. Sorry, you can take the next question.
And of course, who doesn't like vegetables and fruits which are properly peeled and cut and chopped, ready to be used? Well, I surely do. I think there was another question from him for Agristo directly. Have you explored the Government of India schemes for forming FPOs to aggregate the farmers to produce their potatoes at scale? So
yes, we have. Of course, it's interesting. These are subsidies, but there's a difference between what looks nice on paper and what is achievable. Because the amount of paperwork is huge. Okay, we fulfilled all the paperwork, and now 1 year later, we're still waiting on that money. So yeah, we'll see. But we're definitely looking into it because there are a lot of subsidies available, of course. But
also, as we speak, that there are a number of companies like starting from a PepsiCo to a McCain to in variety of other fields, other produce as well, where contract is happening. in some form or the other. So I guess there are very different models in different places, and that's clearly there.
Okay.
Thank you. Now there's another one from Ambuj again. A lot of questions from him. Thank you, Ambuj, for you seem really keyed into it. Now he asks, India is an incredibly price-sensitive market. How do companies, other international companies, factor that when selling their high-quality products in the Indian market? I think Ghee already touched upon it a bit, how farm has dealt with this a little bit, but probably if anyone else wants to comment on it, how they adapt or customize, or how do you deal with a price sensitive market like India? If anyone else wants to take it up, maybe.
Yeah, I'll again take that up. In terms of, yes, certainly, I don't say really India is a price sensitive market. India is a value conscious market. I think I would rather put it that way. So there is a slight difference in terms of it's not only the cheapest price of what they're looking at, but
Sure.
overall bundled in terms of if you are able to give them relevant products, that obviously there will be a certain premium because of it is being processed and so on and so forth. But and offer them the convenience, I think there is definitely a market. And we have seen that time and again with many players have successfully demonstrated.
Okay. There's another one, interesting one. How would you rate the marketability of organically grown, directly grown sourced commodities from India?
Yeah.
And this would be for perhaps, I don't know. Oh, yes. Steve.
Yeah, well, if I may, obviously we know the European market pretty well, and it has learned a massive growth in consumption of organic food here. And I do think again that India, if it has a proper cold chain in place, and if it is capable of bringing that closer to the European consumer, they will definitely benefit to let's say the additional price that the consumer is willing to pay for product that come with organic growing. Also, there is some kind of there's a lot of investment taking place now in what we call provenance.
Yes.
And when it comes to some of these products, I mean, I truly believe that India has maybe it's still a little bit unknown, but when it comes to, and it was touched earlier also by Ghee, the vegan, the vegetarian lifestyle, European consumers will translate that somehow in their minds. And it means that if tomorrow nice Indian organic produce will be available in our retail and for our consumers, it will be a hit. It will be successful, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That's encouraging. And there's a question for Ghee. Two questions actually. Any specific low-cost machinery for chili processing and a machinery for sugarcane peeling and cutting?
You're on mute.
Ghee, you're on mute.
Ghee, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I think I prefer that all these questions will be transferred to our organization
Absolutely.
in India, to Men and Technical Services, because they have, of course, a huge experience of different products.
Yeah.
We have demo machines available for testing, and yes, we have solutions for these kind of products. But in order to answer this question completely, I will need to ask probably 5-6 questions about what the shape, in what shape do you want to cut, what is the capacity, etc., etc., etc. And I don't think that this is the purpose of this meeting, but definitely happy to answer all these questions because that's why we are in the business for, and maybe we could gather all these questions, and then
Absolutely.
I will transfer it to FAM in India.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I think we don't have any more time. KS, would you like to close or?
Yeah. I think thanks a lot for this fascinating discussion, which took us through the thing. And I really go back with, again, a lot of learnings, and which I'm sure with many of you have as well. Clearly, in terms of setting up a local development center, and as Guy said, in terms of finding specific solutions for chilies and sugarcane and so on and so forth. So clearly, the local development center would be able to identify that and build around that. Building machines with giving speed but lower capacities and so on, and modifications of that, and taking that to the world markets. I think even Agristo's whole experience in terms of how they go about to train the farmers, growing different varieties, and the whole movement of market from the table to the processed varieties. And then off to Steve in terms of talking of using of technology, transparency, blockchain, adapting new technology to take it to the next level. And of course, Pankaj's again experience with INI farms in terms of working again with developing local models for each crop, each set of farmers, and building and taking that to scale. I think all these were, I would say, we take back as learnings, put all of this together and see how we can then build a successful, and I would say co-create a model for each and every industry subcategory to sort of meet the requirements of not only the domestic market, but also the international market. And at the same time, meet the requirement which the Indian populace is demanding, and at the same time, cut down on food waste and improve yields of the farmers as well. So I think all that put together would really is where I would really like to sum it up. And thank you all for once again for joining me, and thanks for all the other participants as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Another last note of thank you from us. And also, I would like to thank Shoma Sengupta. Shoma, if you can put on your camera, please, so everyone can see you, who has worked hard in the background to bring us all together here. And also Christoph, who's our most important man of the day, tech support. Christoph, if you could also say hello to everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, okay. And thank you all very much, all our panelist speakers. Thanks a lot. And anyone in the audience, if you have more questions, feel free to write to us and we will connect you to the right parties. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.